Nearly everyone on Earth has heard about the legendary ship Titanic. It was a British passenger liner operated by White Star Line, sinking in the North Atlantic Ocean on April 15, 1912, after striking an iceberg on her maiden voyage. The RMS Titanic was sailing from Southampton, England to New York City. Throughout much of the voyage, the wireless radio operators aboard the ship received iceberg warnings. Unfortunately, it couldn't avoid a collision with an iceberg. These are 10 things you may not know about the Titanic disaster. Number 10. One ship musician wasn't declared dead until 2000. The Titanic was a highly regarded ship, being the largest ship afloat when it was constructed. The shipbuilders had high society passengers in mind when constructing the ship. So a ship with the richest man in the world on board would definitely have musicians. One of the musicians on board was Roger Marie Bricout, who died alongside other musicians in the sinking. Unfortunately, France received no record of his death, and in 1913, the French army regarded him as a deserter because of his disappearance. In fact, Bricout was not declared dead until the year 2000. Number 9. The band went down playing music. While the aristocrats that were on board the Titanic have been at the center of much of the history of the tragedy, there is a lesser-known true story of an unforgettable incident that took place at the time of the sinking. When the ship struck the iceberg in the early hours of April 15th, Wallace Hartley, an English violinist and the band leader, brought together his orchestra, which made their way to the main deck where they entertained the panic-stricken passengers. The band did not stop playing, even as the ship split in half, and people were getting swept violently into the waters. They kept it up until the end, when the engulfing ocean drowned them. No member of the band survived the sinking. Their bravery, dedication, and sacrifice will always be remembered in the narrative of the ship's tragic tale. Number 8. A Titanic survivor also survived the Britannic. The Titanic was part of a trio of Olympic-class liners built by Harland and Amp Wolff for the White Star Line, aimed at dominating the transatlantic passenger trade with their unmatched size and luxury. While the Olympic enjoyed a 24-year career before being retired and scrapped, its sister ships, the Titanic and the Britannic, were not as fortunate, both succumbing to tragic fates. Violet Jessop, an Irish nurse, was 28 when she witnessed the Britannic's demise in the Aegean Sea near Greece, following a collision with a German mine. In her harrowing escape, Jessop jumped into the sea but was pulled under the ship's keel, sustaining a head injury from the propellers. Remarkably, she attributed her survival to her thick hair cushioning the blow. This incident alone would be notable, but Jessop's story is further extraordinary because she was also a passenger on the Titanic during its infamous iceberg collision. She secured a spot in a lifeboat, becoming one of the 710 passengers rescued by the Carpathia. Jessop's presence on both ill-fated ships makes her survival story particularly remarkable. Number 7. A rumor claimed a man escaped the sinking by dressing as a woman. During the rescue effort after Titanic hit the iceberg, the rescuers followed the social imperative of women and children first. But then, it became imminent that the Titanic was going to sink. So, it's logical that a man who wanted to escape the sinking may need to dress up as a woman. The man suspected to have done this was William T. Sloper of New Britain, Connecticut. He was publicly shamed in a New York newspaper as the man who got off in a woman's clothing. In reality, Sloper escaped the sinking in the very first lifeboat launched. This is because when Sloper got a seat on the lifeboat, many of Titanic's passengers were yet to comprehend the direness of the situation, and very few were willing to sit on a lifeboat in the open sea. By the time the gravity of the situation became known to all aboard the Titanic, Sloper was already in a lifeboat. Number 6. 1958. Film had survivor try to symbolically go down with the ship. Lawrence Beasley, a second-class passenger aboard the Titanic, was in his cabin, D-56, during the ship's collision with an iceberg. Sensing something amiss, he inquired with a steward, who dismissively assured him all was normal, a claim Beasley doubted. He ventured to the A-deck to investigate, but missed witnessing the event. Deciding to return to his cabin, he noticed an oddity while descending the stairs. His footing was off, even though the stairs seemed level. Back on the A-deck, he finally grasped the gravity of the situation and managed to escape on a lifeboat. Beasley later authored a successful book, The Loss of the SS Titanic, detailing his ordeal. He also gained notoriety during the filming of A Night to Remember, a movie about the Titanic. Present at the filming of the sinking scene, Beasley attempted to symbolically drown himself to go down with the Titanic. However, film director Roy Ward Baker intervened, preventing Beasley's dramatic gesture due to its potential consequences. Number 5. Half of one school's students lost their fathers. The news of the sinking of the Titanic was devastating to the whole world. However, there was no city in the world that was more devastated by the news of the Titanic disaster than the port city of Southampton. The scenes in some parts of the town were heart-wrenching when the news broke in Southampton. Nearly 1,000 families were concerned by the fate of the crew alone. In most cases, the sole breadwinner of each of the families were the ones involved in the disaster. In fact, in one school in Northam, Southampton, 120 of the 240 pupils lost their fathers in the disaster. Number 4. Ship used in filming. A Titanic movie also sank. Numerous films have been made about the Titanic sinking, including a unique one produced during World War II by the Nazis to disgrace Britain. This film, titled Titanic, 1943, and often referred to as The Nazi Titanic, was scripted by German writer Harold Bratt. Under the supervision of Goebbels, the film was created as a piece of propaganda and became the most expensive movie of its time. It began production in September 1941, portraying British capitalists as the antagonists who prioritized profit over passenger safety, recklessly aiming to break transatlantic records. The film's director requested a life-sized ship for filming, leading to the use of the Cap Arcona, a German luxury liner. In a tragic twist of fate, the Cap Arcona was later destroyed by RAF Typhoon fighter bombers towards the end of World War II. Number 3. Titanic, 1997. Film was more expensive than the actual ship. The Titanic movie was the most expensive movie ever made at the time of its release. The movie gulped $210 million, which is $337 million in today's money. On the other hand, it cost $7.5 million to build the RMS Titanic, $200 million in today's money. In addition, the Titanic ship and the Titanic movie had certain similarities. When construction was completed, the Titanic was the most luxurious ship afloat. The same goes for the Titanic movie, as the most expensive movie ever made when it was released. Their fate was, however, different. While the Titanic sank on its maiden voyage, leading to monumental financial losses, the Titanic movie has gone on to gross $2.2 billion and was the first movie to pass the $1 billion mark. Number 2. A woman died because she refused to leave her dog behind. Anne Elizabeth Isham was a passenger aboard the Titanic. She was one of 5 female first-class passengers to die when the ship sank. It is believed that Anne had already secured a place on one of the lifeboats that rescued passengers, but she jumped out as soon as she was informed that her dog, a Great Dane, would not join her. Days later, a recovery ship found the body of a woman clinging to a large dog, and all accounts believe that it was Anne Elizabeth Isham and her beloved Great Dane. Number 1. Whiskey saved a survivor of the Titanic. Charles Jochin was born in 1878 and was a chef from Birkenhead who served as a chief baker on the Titanic. When the ship hit the iceberg, Jochin helped move women and children onto Lifeboat 10. Despite the fact that he was assigned as the captain of Lifeboat 10, he did not board it, but instead returned to his quarters and consumed whiskey, water flooding at his feet. Later that day, Jochin would be remembered for his astonishingly long survival time in icy waters, as there was no space for him on any other lifeboat, so he survived by holding on to the edges of a lifeboat while half of his body was submerged in water. It is believed that the large amount of whiskey he consumed boosted his courage and reduced the fear and panic that could make a man succumb to such a negatively overwhelming situation.